Yeah, Brian Eamon, Brian Wilson with you. Pleased to have Ann Coulter on the line, conservative pundit, columnist. Are you still allowed to be called a conservative? I know there's been a lot of attack on you, people calling you a rhino and everything. I never thought in a million years that people would have that line of thinking when it comes to Ann Coulter as maybe not being conservative enough.
I don't think anyone who isn't in a straitjacket has that line of thinking.
Okay, I don't think so.
Don't get worried about that.
But your love, your support of Mitt Romney, however you want to call it, has people wonder why. So I have the question for you.
It doesn't have people wondering why. You really have to distinguish between crazy people living in hovels with a lot of time on their hands and the run-of-the-mill conservative. I mean, I traveled the country a lot. I haven't been in one place for a week since January, and I just got home after 2 months on the road. Nobody reacts to me by saying, oh, what's with Mitt Romney? No, they are very thankful for Mitt Romney, and this is including Newt Gingrich and Santorum supporters. It's usually liberals who have the active mob-like rage, sending off constant emails, but there are some mob-like elements among conservatives, and I think a lot of you people who don't leave your radio studios are being fooled by that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Lowell, let me ask you this. Are you concerned at all about Mitt Romney being an Etch-a-Sketch president?
No, I thought that was very silly at the time. Unfortunately, I was on the road greeting my hordes of conservative fans. So I couldn't respond. I mean, obviously what that aide was talking about was that the campaign, you run a campaign differently when you're going against Obama versus when you're going against Santorum and Gingrich. It's utterly preposterous to imagine even the stupidest Republican aide, even Scott
McClellan. Yeah, he was a winner.
He would have said, yes, my man's principles are like an Etch-a-Sketch. He was talking about how you run a campaign, and yeah, it's different in running against Obama versus running against Santorum. It's different running against Santorum than running against Gingrich.
All right,
obviously.
So Santorum is out, and Gingrich is going to make it official this week. He's out, and so now we can sort of look forward to Romney as the presumptive nominee, just waiting for all the numbers to line up to make it official. Let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about. Who should his running mate be? You have been a big fan of the governor of New Jersey.
Yes, I think it would be a magic combination. But I've always been wrong in choosing vice president, so let me just say I think someone like Chris Christie would be good. Someone with as they used to say about Dick Cheney, with gravitas, somebody who's been around for a while, not a young pup. I think the contrast with the utterly inexperienced Obama and the flighty, daft Joe Biden, it would be great to make that striking by having someone who's been around for a bit, and we do have a lot of great talent out there. I'd let the great talent continue to be great talent and maybe run themselves someday. There are a lot of, I mean, all this talk about Ryan, Portman, Rubio.
Well, what about Rubio? What about that idea?
Rejecting Ken Cuccinelli.
What about Rubio, though?
I think they're all great, but they're too. You have to be able to shave first, and I don't think Rubio's shaving yet.
And so you think he's just too young and too inexperienced?
Yeah, not that he wouldn't do a good job, but let them keep doing what they're doing. And another in the gravitas category, though my friend Mickey Kaus recently told me that John Kyle had turned on us, had betrayed us on immigration, is John Kyle. The senior senator, right?
Yes.
Yeah. From Arizona. He's
I'm
been
not
there
sure.
even longer than McCain,
yeah, I think so.
Isn't that right?
I think that's right.
Although it's hard to believe. Boy, McCain's old. Anyway, he generally ranks one of the most conservative senators, though I generally don't like picking senators for vice president or president. Governors are much better. Wow, we're right back to Christie.
Then you have Massachusetts and New Jersey, two states you wouldn't necessarily think for a Republican presidential ticket.
Maybe it's because of my legal background, but I am a lot more impressed by conservatives coming out of red states than the reverse. And when I say legal background, I don't mean anything having to do with knowledge of the law in this case. I'm talking about which justices you can count on and which go bad. We have, that odd little Norman Bates character from New Hampshire, Justice David Hackett Souter, perhaps the worst justice we've ever had, Sandra Day O'Connor from Arizona. Meanwhile, Scalia, Alito, Clarence Thomas, they came from the belly of the beast. If you have survived a blue state environment, not to mention a blue state university like 2 degrees from Harvard, and emerge a conservative, nothing is going to turn you.
All right. By the way, while we still have you, what do you make of the Obamacare hearings in the Supreme Court? Did you have a leaning one way or the other from your legal mind?
I tend to be pessimistic about my own side, and I don't think you can tell much from an oral argument. I hope the general press around it is true. I think there's still a possibility that the Supreme Court could punt and say we don't have a case or controversy, or just throw out the individual mandate. Of course, one advantage of that would be to indicate that if you throw out the individual mandate but leave the other 2,699 pages, it is still a god-awful disaster, so that conservatives who don't understand that the individual mandate is our constitutional argument, but not the worst thing about Obamacare, will stop their hyperventilating about the individual mandate in a single state, like Massachusetts. This is getting to be a little bit like hysteria over fluoridation of the water.
All right.
So why is it such a big difference between what Massachusetts did and what the federal government did? Because we hear a lot of people calling.
You ask.
I did.
I wrote about it briefly in a column with the catchy title, 3 Chairs for Romney.
Yes.
One is the individual mandate done by a state is absolutely constitutional, done by the federal government, our side argues in the briefs, is unconstitutional. But beyond the constitutionality, though, I do think we should pay attention to that because the framers of our Constitution were much wiser and much smarter than we are. There's a reason for that. You have, 50 states, experiments in all the states. The other thing was the key point. That was only one part of Romney Care. The other part was an actual free market in private insurance was going to be introduced in Massachusetts. If other states had followed that, just that one part of Obamacare, actually probably not that one part, the other 49 states would have had to follow the individual mandate because in addition to states being able to do basically whatever they want to do unless they try to take your guns away or run someone for president who's under 35 years old, states are operating under federal law that they can't do anything about it. And among those federal laws is one that requires states to provide medical care even for the uninsured. We already have socialist health care. It's called an emergency room.
All right, well, Ann, always a pleasure to have you on, always enlightening.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
See you soon.